Hello everyone and welcome back to Turner's Tutoring. We're going to do another read-through for Storytime, and this one's going to go into our 3rd to 5th grade spot, but honestly if in about 2nd grade you could start reading this as well. And this is the Magic Tree House series that I just adore. I grew up with this, and I am very, very happy to be doing a read-through of the number 2 book in the series, The Night at Dawn, by Mary Pope Osborne. We are going to be using the bookmark strategy to track, and as always, I'm going to be placing it underneath the words that I'm going to be reading, and so you will be tracking along up above it. Let's go ahead and get started with The Night at Dawn by Mary Pope Osborne. This is our table of contents. You can reference back to this to know the chapters. We're going to chapter 1. Chapter 1, The Dark Woods. Jack couldn't sleep. He put his glasses on. He looked at the clock. 5:30. Too early to get up. Yesterday, so many strange things had happened. Now, he was trying to figure them out. He turned on the light. He picked up his notebook. He looked at the list he'd made before going to bed. Found treehouse in woods. Found lots of books in it. Pointed to Pteranodon picture in book. Made a wish. Went to time of dinosaurs. Pointed to picture of Frog Creek woods. Made a wish. Came to Frog Creek. Jack pushed his glasses into place. Who was going to believe any of this? Not his mom, or his dad, or his 3rd grade teacher, Miss Watkins. Only his 7-year-old sister, Annie. She'd gone with them to the time of the dinosaurs. Can't you sleep? It was Annie, standing in his doorway. Nope, said Jack. Me neither, said Annie. What are you doing? She walked over to Jack and looked at his notebook. She read the list. Aren't you going to write about the gold medal? She asked. You mean the gold medallion? Said Jack. He picked up his pencil and wrote. Found this in dinosaur time. Aren't you going to put the letter M on the medal? Said Annie. Medallion, said Jack, not medal. Aren't you going to write about the magic person? Said Annie. We don't know for sure if there is a magic person, said Jack. Well, someone built the treehouse in the woods. Someone put the books in it. Someone lost a gold medal in dinosaur time. Medallion, said Jack for the 3rd time, and I'm just writing the facts, the stuff we know for sure. Let's go back to the treehouse right now, said Annie, and find out if the magic person is a fact. Are you nuts? Said Jack. The sun's not even up yet. Come on, said Annie. Maybe we can catch them sleeping. I don't think we should, said Jack. He was worried. What if the magic person was mean? What if he or she didn't want kids to know about the treehouse? Well, I'm going, said Annie. Jack looked out his window at the dark gray sky. It was almost dawn. He sighed. Okay, let's get dressed. I'll meet you at the back door. Be quiet. Yay, whispered Annie. She tiptoed away as quietly as a mouse. Jack put on jeans, a warm sweatshirt, and sneakers. He tossed his notebook and pencil in his backpack. He crept downstairs. Annie was waiting by the back door. She shined a flashlight in Jack's face. Ta-da! A magic wand, she said. Shh! Don't wake up Mom and Dad, whispered Jack, and turn that flashlight off. We don't want anyone to see us." Annie nodded and turned it off. Then she clipped it onto her belt. They slipped out the door into the cool, early morning air. Crickets were chirping. The dog next door barked. "Quiet, Henry," whispered Annie. Henry stopped barking. Animals always seemed to do what Annie said. "Let's run," said Jack. They dashed across the dark, wet lawn and didn't stop until they reached the woods. "We need the flashlight now," said Jack. Annie took it off her belt and switched it on. Step by step, she and Jack walked between the trees. Jack held his breath. The dark woods were scary. "Gotcha," said Annie, shining the flashlight in Jack's face. Jack jumped back, then he frowned. "Cut it out," he said. "I scared you," said Annie. Jack glared at her. "Stop pretending," he whispered. "This is serious." Okay. Annie shined her flashlight over the tops of the trees. "Now, what are you doing?" said Jack. "Looking for the treehouse." The light stopped moving. There it was, the mysterious treehouse. At the top of the tallest tree in the woods, Annie shined her light at the treehouse, and then down the tall ladder, all the way to the ground. "I'm going up," she said. She gripped the flashlight and began to climb. "Wait," Jack called. What if someone was in the treehouse? "Annie, come back." But she was gone. The light disappeared. Jack was alone in the dark. Chapter 2. Leaving Again. "No one's here," Annie shouted down. Jack thought about going home. Then he thought about all the books in the treehouse. He started up the ladder. When he was nearly to the treehouse, he saw light in the distant sky. Dawn was starting to break. He crawled through a hole in the floor and took off his backpack. It was dark inside the treehouse. Annie was shining her flashlight on the books scattered about. "They're still here," she said. She stopped the light on a dinosaur book. It was the book that had taken them to the time of the dinosaurs. "Remember the Tyrannosaurus?" asked Annie. Jack shuddered. Of course he remembered. How could anyone forget seeing a real live Dinosaurus Rex? The light fell on a book about Pennsylvania. A red silk bookmark stuck out of it. "Remember the picture Frog Creek?" said Annie. "Of course," said Jack. That was the picture that had brought them home. "There's my favorite," said Annie. The light was shining on a book about knights and castles. There was a blue leather bookmark in it. Annie turned the page with the book. Mark, there was a picture of a knight on a black horse. He was riding toward a castle. "Annie, close that book," said Jack. "I know what you're thinking." Annie pointed at the knight. "Don't, Annie." "We wish we could see this guy for real," Annie said. "No, we don't," shouted Jack. They heard a strange sound. "Nee-ah." It sounded like a horse neighing. They both went to the window. Annie shined the flashlight down on the ground. "Oh no," whispered Jack. "A knight," said Annie. "A knight in shining armor, riding a black horse through the Frog Creek woods." Then the wind began to moan. The leaves began to tremble. It was happening again. "We're leaving," cried Annie. "Get down." The wind moaned louder. The leaves shook harder, and the treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Jack squeezed his eyes shut. Then everything was still. absolutely still. Jack opened his eyes. He shivered. The air was damp and cool. The sound of a horse's whinny came again from below. "Nay, I think we're here," Annie whispered. She was still holding the castle book. Jack peeked out the window. A huge castle loomed out of the fog. He looked around. The treehouse was in a different oak tree, and down below, the knight on the black horse was riding by. "We can't stay here," said Jack. "We have to go home and make a plan first." He picked up the book about Pennsylvania. He opened it to the page with the red silk bookmark. He pointed to the photograph of the Frog Creek woods. "I wish—" "No," said Annie. She yanked the book away from him. "Let's stay. I want to visit the castle." "You're nuts. We have to examine the situation," said Jack. "From home." "Let's examine it here," said Annie. "Come on." He held out his hand. "Give it." Annie gave Jack the book. "Okay, you can go home. I'm staying," she said. She clipped the flashlight to her belt. "Wait," said Jack. "I'm going to take a peek. A tiny peek. A teeny peek," she said. And she scooted down the ladder. Jack groaned. Okay, she had won. He couldn't leave without her. Besides, he sort of wanted to take a peek himself. He put down the book about Pennsylvania. He dropped the castle book into his pack. He stepped onto the ladder and headed down into the cool, misty air. Chapter 3. Across the Bridge. Annie was under the tree, looking across the foggy ground. The knight's riding toward that bridge. "I think," said Annie, "the bridge goes to the castle." "Wait, I'll look it up," said Jack. "Give me the flashlight." He took the flashlight from her and pulled the castle book out of his pack. He opened it to the page with the leather bookmark. He read the words under the picture of the knight. "This is a knight arriving for a castle feast. Knights wore armor when they traveled long and dangerous distances. The armor was very heavy. A helmet alone could weigh up to 40 pounds. Wow, Jack had weighed 40 pounds when he was 5 years old, so it'd be like riding a horse with a 5-year-old on your head. Jack pulled out his notebook. He wanted to take notes, as he'd done on their dinosaur trip. He wrote, "Heavy head." What else? He turned the pages of the castle book. He found a picture that showed the whole castle and the buildings around it. "The knight's crossing the bridge, and," said Annie, "he's going through the gate. He's gone." Jack studied the bridge in the picture. He read, "A drawbridge crossed the moat. The moat was filled with water to help protect the castle from enemies. Some people believe crocodiles were kept in the moat." Jack wrote in his notebook, "Crocodiles in moat?" "Look," said Annie, peering through the mist. "A windmill, right over there." "Yeah, there's a windmill in here, too," said Jack, pointing at the picture. "Look at the real one, Jack," said Annie, "not the one in the book." A piercing shriek split the air. "Yikes," said Annie. "It sounded like it came from that little horse over there." She pointed through the fog. "There's a little horse here," said Jack, studying the picture. He turned the page and read, "The hawk house was in the inner ward of the castle. Hawks were trained to hunt other birds and small animals." Jack wrote in his notebook, "Hawks in hawk house." "We must be in the inner ward," said Jack. "Listen," whispered Annie. "You hear that? Drums, horns. They're coming from the castle. Let's go see." "Wait," said Jack. He turned more pages of the book. "I want to see what's really going on, Jack. Not what's in the book," said Annie. "But look at this," said Jack. He pointed to a picture of a big party. Men were standing by the door, playing drums and horns. He read, "Fanfares were played to announce different dishes in a feast. Feasts were held in the great hall." "You can look at the book. I'm going to the real feast," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack, studying the picture. It showed boys his age carrying trays of food. Whole pigs, pies, peacocks with all their feathers. Peacocks. Jack wrote, "They eat peacocks?" He held up the book to show Annie. "Look, I think they eat." Where was she? Gone again. Jack looked through the fog. He heard the real drums and the real horns. He saw the real hawkhouse, the real windmill, the real moat. He saw Annie dashing across the real drawbridge. Then she vanished through the gate leading to the castle. Chapter 4. "I'm going to kill her," muttered Jack. He threw his stuff into his pack and moved toward the drawbridge. He hoped no one would see him. It was getting darker. It must be night. When he got to the bridge, he started across. The wooden planks creaked under his feet. He peered over the edge of the bridge. Were there any crocodiles in the moat? He couldn't tell. "Halt!" someone shouted. A guard on top of the castle wall was looking down. Jack dashed across the bridge. He ran through the castle gate and into the courtyard. From inside the castle came the sounds of music, shouting, and laughter. Jack hurried to a dark corner and crouched down. He shivered as he looked around for Annie. Torches lit the high wall around the courtyard. The courtyard was nearly empty. Two boys led horses that clopped over the gray cobblestones. "Nay!" Jack turned. It was the knight's black horse. "Psst!" He peered into the darkness. There was Annie. She was hiding behind a well in the center of the courtyard. She waved at him. Jack waved back. He waited till the boys and horses disappeared into the stable. Then he dashed to the well. "I'm going to find the music," whispered Annie. "Are you coming?" "Okay," Jack said with a sigh. They tiptoed together across the cobblestones. Then they slipped into the entrance of the castle. Noise and music came from a bright room in front of them. They stood on one side of the doorway and peeked in. "The feast in the great hall," whispered Jack. He held his breath as he stared in awe. A giant fireplace blazed at one end of the noisy room. Antlers and rugs hung on the stone walls. Flowers covered the floor. Boys in short dresses carried huge trays of food. Dogs were fighting over bones under the tables. People in bright clothes and funny hats strolled among the crowd. Some played funny-shaped guitars. Some tossed balls in the air. Some balanced swords on their hands. Men and women dressed in capes and furs sat at long, crowded wooden tables. "I wonder which one is the knight," said Jack. "I don't know," whispered Annie, "but they're eating with their fingers." Suddenly, someone shouted behind them. Jack whirled around. A man carrying a tray of pies was standing a few feet away. "Who art thou?" he asked angrily. "Jack," squeaked Jack. "Annie," squeaked Annie. Then they ran as fast as they could down a dimly lit hallway. Chapter 5. Trapped. "Come on," cried Annie. Jack raced behind her. Were they being followed? "Here, quick!" Annie dashed toward a door off the hallway. She pushed the door open. The two of them stumbled into a dark, cold room. The door creaked shut behind them. "Give me the flashlight," said Annie. Jack handed it to her, and she switched it on. Yikes! A row of knights right in front of them. Annie flicked off the light. Silence. "They aren't moving," Jack whispered. Annie turned the light back on. "They're just suits," Jack said. "Without heads?" said Annie. "Let me have the flashlight a second," said Jack, "so I can look in the book." Annie handed him the flashlight. He pulled out the castle book. He flipped through the pages until he found what he was looking for. Jack put the book away. "It's called the Armory," he said. "It's where armor and weapons are stored." He shined the flashlight around the room. "Oh man," whispered Jack. The light fell on shiny breastplates, leg plates, arm plates, on shelves filled with helmets and weapons, and on shields, spears, swords, crossbows, clubs, battle axes. There was a noise in the hall. "Voices!" "Let's hide," said Annie. "Wait," said Jack. "I've got to check on something first." "Hurry," said Annie. "It'll take just a second," said Jack. "Hold this." He handed Annie the flashlight. He tried to lift a helmet from a shelf. It was too heavy. He bent over and dragged the helmet over his head. The visor slammed shut. He forgot it. It was worse than having a 5-year-old on your head, more like having a 10-year-old on your head. Not only could Jack not lift his head, he couldn't see anything either. "Jack!" Annie's voice sounded far away. "The voices are getting closer. Turn off the flashlight," Jack's voice echoed inside the metal chamber. He struggled to get the helmet off. Suddenly, he lost his balance and went crashing into other pieces of armor. The metal plates and weapons clattered to the floor. Jack lay on the floor in the dark. He tried to get up, but his head was too heavy. He heard deep voices. Someone grabbed him by the arm. The next thing he knew, his helmet was yanked off. He was staring into the blazing light of a fiery torch. Okay, that is it for today's reading. We'll read the other 5 chapters as we saw in the table of contents in our next video. Thank you for joining me for The Night at Dawn. And this has been Turner's Tutoring for another Storytime read-through. We're reading Magic Tree House number 2, The Night at Dawn, Mary Pope Osborne. Join me for the next one where we read the next half of the book. And if you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and definitely share this video and the channel with friends. Thank you for joining me again, and I wish you guys a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.